Welcome to Hit and Hustle from IRSportsDaily.com. I am your host, Greg Flamong, and with me, as always, is Jamie Ueyama, Jamie University. It is Tuesday, March 28th. We are going to be talking about spring ball. We're going to be talking about Jamie's ISD Fab 50 that he has poured over the film over. You know, we're always excited for the Fab 50 to come out. Jamie Ueyama. And you know what? You do such a good job with the Fab 50. Like, seriously. You get on guys who are like low in the rankings now, and then in terms of like the main sites like 247 and On3 and Rivals and all that stuff, and then by the end of the cycle, look at that.
What do you know?
Yeah, and I think your best one last year was Jeremiah Love. You might consider another one, but Jeremiah Love was in the initial Fab 50 when he was a 3-star, bumped all the way up to top 100 players. So that's a good call. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about some recruiting stuff because Anthonie Knapp is a offensive lineman who visited over the weekend. We're going to focus on him because he set a commitment date, Jamie. And that's usually good news, right? You visit Notre Dame. He was connected to Joe Rudolph when he was at Virginia Tech. Set a commitment date. That's usually good news. So we're going to talk about him. And then we're going to talk about spring football, just some things that I've noticed over time, over the 3 days that we've gotten to see them, and some of the videos that have gone out, and just like a lot of height and weight stuff, not height, weight stuff, like weight differences that popped up that are indicative to me, and guys who are really taking these things seriously and that sort of thing. So, that's going to be the show today. Thank you very much for tuning in, everyone. Of course, we are sponsored by ESQ Clothing, and we're going to talk about them a little bit as the show gets going. And so thank you for joining. Hit the like, hit subscribe button, hit the notification bell. Subscribe to our podcast on Apple Pods, Spotify. It's in the description below. And check it out, man. Just had a wonderful conversation with Ian Book over last Friday. That went live on Friday. And I think everyone should check it out, Jamie. And before
everyone should definitely check that out. Great job by you. Great job.
Thank you.
Great stuff from Ian.
Yes, thank you, Jamie. I have a question for you. If you were playing in a football game and you got hit in the game and your side was hurting and something didn't feel right, and then you went into the bathroom at halftime and you peed blood, would you tell somebody, Jamie?
I'd probably tell somebody. I gotta admit, I would probably tell somebody that was going on. I don't want to. I mean, I don't want to get it construed like I'm advocating for people to do like go and put themselves in danger. But I respect that he, put himself out there.
Yeah.
And obviously it showed a type of toughness that you have to respect, but it's pretty dicey. But I think Notre Dame fans should really be appreciative of everything that he did.
Yeah, for sure. Baby Beast is here. I'm going to say hi to Baby Beast. Thank you for being in the show. It's I think everyone had kind of heard about the stop spamming the chat, Baby Beast. Seriously, settle down. I think everyone had heard about how he was hurt. You know, he had a kidney problem. I don't know if it was an assumption or what. My understanding was like this was something that happened Monday, Tuesday, right? It's like he started, they discovered it was like a real problem a couple of days after the game, not at halftime, right? Calls in Nolan Hendry, who's a walk-on quarterback, and he's pre-med. He calls him in. He's like, "Hey, is this bad? Like, should I not be doing this?" And Nolan Hendry didn't know, so he goes out there, doesn't tell the coaches, doesn't tell the trainers, doesn't go anything. Goes out and wins the game on the road for Notre Dame against Northwestern. So, but there's a lot of good stuff in that piece. So if you haven't seen it, it's in the description below. I linked that as well. You can also listen on the pod. So that's what's going on. Sejin Park is here from Korea. Thank you for being here. He's still up, but he'll make it all the way through the podcast. No problem. As long as you're subscribed, you can watch it back or listen on Apple Pods. Yeah, Apple Pods, whatever you want to do. Brendan's asking if there's anyone notable that I was early in on. And I have an ISD Fab 1, and that one was Kyle Hamilton, and I was early on that. But I think a lot of people were early on that, so that's no big surprise. So Jamie, why don't we lead off with the ISD Fab 50? Tell me about I guess the Notre Dame prospects, right? There's a couple commits in the ISD Fab 50, and then some notable prospects there who are also Notre Dame is in on, who are also part of the Fab 50.
Yeah, so obviously 2 guys that are in the class already that are elite guys that everybody knows about. Quarterback CJ Carr, who I have ranked 21st overall, and Cam Williams, who I believe I have ranked 38th overall. Yes. So these guys are obviously critically important guys for Notre Dame to keep in the class. Obviously, it's critical that that they continue to have good relations. I think that's why you got to keep them both, because if one of them left, I think it kind of could teeter something else. I'm not to be a doomsday guy, but I just saying they're critically important. Those are the kind of guys, they're difference makers in the class. And obviously you look at how important the commitment of CJ Carr was, because I don't think Cam Williams is there if it wasn't for Carr. Right. So
yeah.
Cam Williams, I think probably, because he was hurt a little bit in his junior year. I think he has a chance to really kind of even jump up even further as a junior. He definitely has like number 1 wide receiver qualities, big play guy as well. Carr, I think is like, it is insane to me. I think On3 has him like 200. I think sometimes some of these sites do this just to troll because it's like a Notre Dame guy or something. Yeah. It makes zero sense why he would be a 200 guy, because he's like basically like top 30, top 40 for everybody else in the country. And I think that's probably appropriate. The guy's off. He's a talent. He's a big time talent. He can pretty much make every kind of throw that you want. He's obviously a great guy at improvising, throw off platform, accurate, just a beautiful throwing motion. Just he's got all the qualities that you'd want out of an elite quarterback. One of the best guys that Notre Dame would land in a long, long time. But I think after that, it's kind of becomes like murkier, because there's not a ton of guys that they're in on that I think they really have a good shot at. Right. So I'm a big fan of linebacker Kingston Viliamu Asa, who's out in California, out by you, Greg.
Yeah.
He is
he's Bosco, right? St. John Bosco.
He's St. John Bosco. I think he's a top 5 linebacker in the class. I have him 36th overall in the country. I think he is one of these guys who can kind of do it all. He is a tremendous blitzer, just great at block destruction, a good athlete, has an edge to his game. I think he could be a difference making type of second level player. Also kind of line up off the edge and do some of that too. He's supposed to make it in on the Friday. It was a bit of a late scratch, so that's disappointing. Hopefully Notre Dame can get him back in the spring or the summer. I mean, obviously a ton of people are going to be after him, but I mean, he would be a huge, massive pickup for them. And then after that, Jaden Riddell, who they just had on campus, is a tight end. And he's one of these guys that I'm in on kind of like higher than a lot of other people. I have a 40th. I think he is, a lot of Brock Bowers vibes with him in terms of just his overall athleticism, tremendous like body control. I mean, they already have a good tight end in the class already. But I think Riddell is also just like, if you can get, I think they're going to take 2 anyways in the class. And just to get a guy of his caliber, I think it would just be worth, like, he would just be a guy that I think, similar to Michael Mayer, immediate type of impact type of guy. So had him on campus, we'll see. Not a ton of news from him after the visit, but we'll see. Elijah Rushing, who's got I have him 11th overall. I mean, I thought he'd take a massive jump as a junior from sophomore to junior year, big time kind of like inside outside rusher. I think he's going to play the edge, but I think he's a guy who could line up inside on third down and rush from a 3 technique. Just massive wingspan. Really just showed really improved twitch. Just got just total NFL measurables all the way. And they have him in for a visit in June for an official visit that's set. I mean, obviously it's going to be incredibly tough to land a guy like that, but you gotta take your shot and see where they're at. And then after that, it's pretty much like the one guy that I'm really, really high on that no one else is high on that I've seen is Malachi Williams, who's an edge rusher athlete, just super twitchy, just super reactive athlete, 6'4", about 220-ish, but man, I think he's got some special traits, and I think he has a chance to be just an outstanding pass rusher. Would be projected to be a Viper for Notre Dame. He's visiting for the spring game. That's obviously going to be a huge visit. I think he has a chance to be one of the better pass rushers in the class, and it's a class that is loaded with edge rushers. Kind of the problem after that is there's not a lot of other of these big guys are in on. I guess Nigel Smith, I guess we'll kind of see. He's a defensive lineman from Texas, kind of like a big end, play a little bit of 3 tech. I like him quite a bit. He's 47th for me, but I mean, he's got to get out to campus. Ryan Wingo doesn't sound like they're gonna have a shot at him. I do think Ryan Wingo is not a great receiver right now, but he's a heck of an athlete. He's just an explosive athlete. And I think he's a guy who's probably a little bit in the Braylon James mode where you're like, this guy's just such an exciting athlete that you just take him. And I mean, once he kind of develops and gets there, I think he has a chance to be great. And, you hear a lot of Tennessee for him. And man, I think actually if he goes to Tennessee, I don't know if it'll help him that much for his NFL career, but I think he's just, you just throw the guy a bunch of go balls. And I think, that would probably be a pretty perfect fit for him. But, after that, there's just not a lot of guys they're in on, right? And that's just kind of where they're at. And it's not that they can't have a good class, but and they've offered obviously a ton of these guys, but they haven't made a lot of, movements with a lot of these guys. Obviously Mylan Graham, if he was a guy who could get into school, I think Notre Dame would have a pretty decent shot at. Obviously, he was on campus for Irish Invasion. I think he liked Notre Dame. It's just they can't recruit him, right? They can't recruit him. And I think he's, from what I've heard, he's going to struggle to get in a lot of schools. So if he's going to struggle to get in a lot of schools, he's definitely not getting into Notre Dame, right? So, which is unfortunate because when you get a guy like that, from Fort Wayne, who is, legitimately one of the most exciting receivers in the country, that sucks because if you paired him with Cam Williams, oh my gosh, what a class you'd have. And just after that, there's just not a lot of guys. And there's obviously some guys that I mentioned that I think have a chance to maybe move up and be top 50 guys later on. I think TJ Lindsey's somebody. I don't understand his rankings at all with some of these people. I think he's a heck of a 3 tech, man. He's already a big body. He's a guy out of Arkansas. He's going to visit April 22nd. There's cornerback Caleb Beasley, who's going to visit this weekend, who I think he's a top 100 guy. I think he's a chance, if you're a top 100 guy, you got a chance to move up in the top 50.
Yeah.
Certainly super talented corner. Benedict Ume, who's a Canadian kid who's out playing out in the Northeast right now, moved down there to, try to kind of get, I think he's a guy who's, with a lot of these Canadian kids who would go down there, he hasn't had the coaching for as long. So he's got a lot of untapped potential. He's a guy who's an end, but he's going to be an interior guy. And he's going to visit April 6th. So that's a guy Darian Mayo, he's going to visit, he's supposed to visit this weekend. Another guy who I just do not understand the ranking. I think he's probably a top 150 kid and really super long, just athletic. I think he's a guy who could easily go way, way, way up in the rankings later on. And he's visiting this weekend. So those are guys like Gerby Lambert is another guy who it's not a very good O-line class. I only have 2 O-linemen in the Fab 50. I just don't think there's a lot of like too many high end offensive linemen in this class. It's just sometimes it's just like that in some classes. And Gerby Lambert, I certainly think he is a guy who has a chance to be, a top 50, maybe even a 5-star kid later on, with some kind of like physical and technical development. Certainly a guy with a super, super high ceiling as a left tackle prospect. And I'm big on Bryant Young's kid, Bryce Young. I think Bryce Young is super underrated. Fantastic eval by, Al Washington, who obviously offered him in camp. And, at first, when you see a thing like that and it's like, oh, they offered Bryant Young's kid. And you're like, okay, well, they offered Bryant Young's kid. And it's like, no, he's got like big time traits. And I think he is just kind of scratching the surface of kind of what he can be.
Yeah.
And I think he's a guy who could be a huge, huge riser. And obviously he's got the pedigree, right? Like, that's part of it. But like, I just think too, just the physical traits. Like, I think the guy has a chance to be a big, big time defensive lineman.
Someone you didn't name is Justin Scott, who was also on campus. Where would you have him? Would you have him in the top 100 class, top 150? Where would you put him now? And obviously, we've talked about the upside there, right? Like someone who, I think, if there was a jump in play, a jump in like just a consistent effort, consistent motor. I mean, that's a top 50 upside, right? I guess.
Yeah.
But where would you have him now?
I mean, I have him as like a top 150 type kid.
Okay.
I just think, like, especially because out of the defensive line in the class, like I have a ton of defensive linemen in the Fab 50, right? Like I think I have 14 defensive linemen in there, or like maybe 15. And so it's not like there's not a lot of great defensive linemen. And I understand, I see why. I mean, I think he's like a 5-star, pretty, like he's like a consensus 5.
Someone's got him like top 20. Top 10.
I think On3 has him like 7th overall or something like that.
Yeah.
And I don't see it on film. I don't. And I see, obviously, he's a monster. His physical traits. Like, you look at him and you think, oh, this guy could be Dexter Lawrence, right? You look at that and you see glimpses of that, but like, go back and watch Dexter Lawrence's tape and compare it to Justin Scott, and there is no comparison. Right? Go back and look at some of the top defensive tackles in this class and compare it to Justin Scott. And there's a gap. It's a big gap to me, right? And I think he is super talented and has a chance. Like, he has a chance to be special, right? He has a chance to be super special. But I mean, I think there's a long way to go for him. And if I'm thinking of like a guy who's going to be, top 50 or like a 5-star kid, especially top 10 in the class, like that guy's got to play day one, pretty much. He's got to be a guy who's in the mix day one. There's not many 5-stars that are like, I think this guy's going to redshirt, or I don't know if he can crack the rotation. And right now, that's kind of what I see from Justin Scott, is that I think in the long run, he's got a chance to be really, really good. But I think he's, got some work to do. And I do think a lot of it is coaching. Right. Yeah. A lot of his coaching and development and whatever. I always say this stuff, and I want to put the caveat, like, I don't want to slag on his defensive line coach or anything like that. I don't want to do that to some of these high school coaches or whatever, especially because like some of these guys aren't getting paid and they're just out there just helping, doing everything they can. Mm-hmm. But I think he needs a lot of technical development. I think he needs a lot. And I think there's just a consistency issue. Also, I hate when like, okay, the guy's going to be a 1 tech. Don't line him up on the edge and try to like have him stand up. You're not helping the kid. You're not even helping your team, really, right? Like, so I don't get that. Like, why not you could line him up over a center and he could just dominate that center all day long. So why are you doing that? I think that's bad coaching. I'm sorry to his program, but I think it is bad coaching. And and it's not just him. I see that with a lot of guys, and I don't get that at all. You're not helping the kid. I don't think you're really helping your team by doing that. So I think he's definitely a guy. Like, if I was Notre Dame, yes, he would be like a top of the board priority type, because there's just only so many guys that you can get like that in a class, especially a guy from Chicago, right? So I think he's obviously an important guy, right? But he is and like it's Garland Doxey, he is not a day one gap closer. He's not. If you just watch the film and you watch the games, he's not. Maybe he will be after his senior year. Maybe if I see senior film and he really, really takes a big jump, I'll say that. But I'm telling you, I've watched not just huddle highlights. I've watched full games from him. I've talked to different people who have seen him play games in Chicago. And they're like, yes, you can see it. All the things you say about why he's so talented and so great, and why, like, they're like, Marcus Stroom's coming late to practice because he wants to spend time with Jessica. I get all of that. I would be doing the same thing if I was in those shoes. I'm just telling you, people who have expectations of him being a guy who's going to be a day one difference maker, that's not who he is on the field yet. Could be, but not yet.
Yeah. So, I mean, the evaluation is the evaluation, right? And that's what Jamie thinks. And so and I trust Jamie on the D-line stuff, especially on the on D-line, O-line, that sort of thing. Like I see to Jamie on that sort of evaluation there. And like, if Jamie's calling him a top 150 player now, so it's not like,
yeah, he's an elite recruit.
He's
one of the best in the country.
Yeah, it's not like he's not a take or something.
I'm just saying he's not a top 10 guy,
right? Like it is what it is, right? Like, it's so easy to, and I guess like to be fair, we were just talking about CJ Carr and that sort of thing, and one of the services has him like top 200 or whatever. Like On3 has him top 200. Like, fine, if that's the evaluation, that's evaluation. Like, you don't want to be a herder. I guess is, if that's what you think, then that's what you think, and that's cool, right? And I
totally respect when people go out on their own on a limb and say,
right,
I don't like this guy, or I really love this guy. I think that's great. Like, okay, so here's an example: Charles Jagusa, right? In the last class, I think On3 had him as like a 5-star, like a guy who was like, whatever. I think I had him on, but he was the bottom.
They had him in the top 10.
Yeah, they had him like super duper high, and like, he might be that. And if it is, good, man, that's a great eval by them. I mean, I'll give them all the credit in the world. I have him as top 50 guy, so it's not like I'm like so far off in it, but just, I like when people do that and they say, like, have conviction. And it's like, this is why we think this guy's going to be this. That's great. And if everyone has the same board, or you're following everybody's thing, like, then you're doing it wrong. Then you're not making your own evaluations. You're not looking at it. Like you said, it's a herd mentality. You don't want to be that. And I try not to be that. And I try to, have my own thoughts and opinions on it. And, everybody, I get a bunch wrong, right? I get a bunch wrong. But I also think I have like a pretty decent track record of getting it right with a lot of guys. So especially Notre Dame guys, because I know kind of like how they would fit at Notre Dame and in their kind of system, and what it would take to, in terms of a prospect to work out at Notre Dame. So, and we'll see what happens. And like I always say too, it's a marathon, not a sprint with the evaluation and the recruiting process, right? Just like how they're not going to land Justin Scott tomorrow because of what they did on this visit. They're going to have to keep at it, and whatever, even if they get a commitment from him, they have to keep at it. Well, you're going to keep evaluating him. You're going to keep evaluating him, and things change. Some guys who are top 10 drop to like, top 300, right? Some guys who are, some guys like Cal Hamilton, who people were way off and whatever, like Greg, you were way on right away. Like, he ends up sliding up. But even then, Greg, like, look at some of these people didn't have Kyle Hamilton as like a top 50 player. Like, it's insane. And I mean, obviously he proved them wrong. Yeah.
I mean, it's just, people see different things, right? But I mean, like we said, he's obviously a take. We're not doing that. We're talking about the ISD Fab 50 and why he's not in the Fab 50. And so it is, if Notre Dame lands a top 150 one tech, that's a good thing, right? And that's something that everyone should be excited about. And speaking of where Notre Dame is with him, seems like they should feel pretty good about it. I mean, just in terms of like, I think he really likes Notre Dame. I think he really likes where Notre Dame is. Christian had some really good quotes from him. I encourage everyone to go to oursportsdaily.com and check those out because he had some enlightening comments just about like, you know, he I think he likes being close by. I think he likes that. I think he wants that. And, you know, I think that's something that Georgia is going to have to overcome for him. I think he's going to Miami too. Like, I just don't see that. I don't see that at all in terms of a fit. I think he likes Notre Dame. I think he likes Marcus Freeman. I think he likes being around the guys. I think he likes the idea of being an Notre Dame football player. And I think the reason that he didn't commit earlier when, you know, kind of everyone thought he was is because Notre Dame said, hey, don't commit and then try to take visits. Don't do that. And he said, okay, that's fine. And everyone was on board, right? And I don't think like I think there was a period there where even for me, like I felt like this isn't gonna happen. But after, you know, he's coming, now there's talk of him coming for the spring game. And you know, if CJ Carr is gonna be around for that, if Cam Williams is gonna be around for that, like I just think him getting around the class of committed guys. And I think now too, you know, recruiting was kind of like it was quiet. I don't want to say it was bad or whatever. It was just quiet. But now that the staff is all put together, now that they're back into spring ball and that sort of thing, I think everything's going to ramp up again. And I think there's going to be a good bit of momentum for Notre Dame on the recruiting front, especially going to get guys on campus now as well.
Yeah,
so
a lot of big visits coming up.
There's a lot going on. There's a lot going on. Coach Humph, I want to bring this up because he brought up Nitro Tuggle. He said he wasn't sure if he could make the show, but he brought up Nitro Tuggle, and he is another Indiana kid, I believe. He's a wide receiver. Is he wide receiver, Jamie? Did I have that right?
Wide receiver, yeah.
Yeah, it's a wide receiver, and was on campus this last weekend. Doesn't yet have an offer, and so I think that's part of why he's asking why there's not a bigger deal made out of him, and I think it's because he hasn't been offered yet.
I'm sure that's why. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of what it is. A great name, you know, like one of the best names I think. I think we've ever heard on the recruiting trail. It's a great name for him. But I think that's kind of the reason for it. All right, people. I mean, it's been noted that he was on campus, but there's just a lot of people to follow right now. There's a lot of guys to focus on, and if he doesn't yet have an offer, then that's kind of why. Right. There's just only so much time and only so much space for people to write about these things. So if he gets an offer and he becomes, you know, someone that Notre Dame is seriously considering in the class, then, you know, that'll change. Do you have any thought on that, Jamie?
Yeah. I mean, I think he's a really good prospect. I think he's a talented guy, big time yards after catch ability. I think he's got a good offer list. Right. Like, especially for a kid from Indiana to get, like, he's got SEC offers, you know, I think Georgia's offered him, Florida, you know, Penn State, he's got a good offer list. Right. Typically, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to speak on whatever, cause I have no idea like why they haven't, I haven't followed it closely enough with him to know like whether or not like, oh, maybe they aren't sure about, academic fit or whatever. Like that would be just pure speculation from me. And because maybe they just don't like him. They like other guys more. I don't know. But I think he's a talented kid. And I mean, just from a talent perspective, could easily see Notre Dame get in on him. And if they do, obviously it'll become a bigger story because he's a local kid.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting. I mean, there's a lot of good wide receiver prospects in this class that Notre Dame has a chance with and has traction with. So, I mean, that could be part of it too, right? And if there's some red flag in there somewhere, right? And I don't, like you said, we don't want to speak on that stuff because we don't really know, but there has to be some reason. He's a local guy and he's not. He hasn't been offered yet, so there must be something there. Let's talk about Anthonie Knapp, Jamie. You like him quite a bit. If anyone was listening to Power Hour yesterday, Jamie gave Anthonie Knapp the hard sell, and it was pretty convincing for me. So we're going to run some highlights, Jamie. I've never seen this many pancakes. Every single clip is a pancake. It's a kind of unbelievable. I don't think I've ever seen it. But let's. I'll run this, and you can talk about Anthonie Knapp. He's going to be announcing. I think tomorrow sometime.
Yeah, I like Anthonie Knapp a lot. I think one of these things that kind of stand out on film, he's an easy mover, right?
Okay.
Like just a good athlete. And I think one of these things that people kind of talk about how the best thing is the best feeling in the world is moving a man from point A to point B against his will. And that is great. And obviously he does a ton of that, right? He does a ton of that. You see him like cake guys, and you see him cake guys with leverage. You see him get out to the thing. But here's like an example. Like just he can get his hips around. The hardest block for an offensive lineman to make is the reach block, right? A guy who's beating you by alignment, who's more athletic than you, like who's smaller than you, that all these things are against you, why you can't do it. And this guy, and he reaches people with ease. And I mean, look at this guy just drive and pancake that dude, just that kind of thing. And easy movement, right? Easy movement, good snatch and grab right there. Beautiful. Love it. Right? Like, long arms, right? So if he's 6'4", 6'5", I've seen 6'4", 6'5", different places. Here's the other thing. They have him, if you're worried about his size, they literally just had him on campus. They look at all that kind of stuff. Penn State had him on campus, looked at his size, and then all of a sudden he became a bigger prospect for them after that. He's like one of Penn State's top tackle prospects, right? So like the in-person evaluation part of it is important in terms of judging, in terms of where you see. The finish, right? The finish, and obviously it's standing out. I'm sorry. We should probably be talking more about just what's going on here, but just like there, snatch and grab again. But look how easy it is. He's in that position because he's in control. He's balanced. I think he's a guy who has the feet to play left tackle. He has the feet to. And whether or not they think he's long enough or he can be big enough, whatever. But like, he's a guy who's athletic enough to play multiple spots on the line, right? And there's this like weird thing right now where people are upset because they're like they think he's too small or whatever. I mean, first of all, I think you believe he's like 265 right now.
265 as a junior.
Yeah, as a junior, exactly. So he could easily be 280, by the end of his senior year. And who else was like that's like Liam Eichenberg. Like that's what no one was stressing about Liam Eichenberg. They do it. People like this because he's, he doesn't have a ranking at a couple of these places, right? He's a 3-star, I believe, on 247. But the other place haven't even ranked him, right? Like he's just not like a thing. I don't know why. So Xander Cruz asking why his offer's not good. I don't know. Like maybe because they didn't get a chance to see him in person.
I want to know why it is
here's
the thing. Here's the thing. I want to know why it is that if Notre Dame, everyone says Notre Dame's O-line U, right?
Yeah.
Then Notre Dame is the offer.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Like, I don't understand this. Like, if everyone says Notre Dame this, right? Notre Dame is O-line U and they can get on everybody and all this other stuff, right? Well, if that's the case, then if Notre Dame offers, then that's the offer. Yeah. That's what everyone else should point to. It's
look
like
at that.
Notre Dame offered.
That's beautiful reach block right there, right? Like
it's just if Notre Dame offered, then why aren't we offering? You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't understand when it comes to offensive line why it has to be. Why doesn't the SEC want him? I don't know. Why is that important to me? I don't care. Notre Dame offered. That's the offer. Like, what offers did Joe Alt have? I don't know. Does it matter? He's going to be a top 10 pick. He's going to be a top 5 pick. Like, I don't understand why that's important. So at quarterback, right? I think it's fair to say. At receiver, I think it's fair to say because Notre Dame doesn't traditionally recruit those guys.
Yeah.
So it could be a red flag for you. That's fine. That doesn't bother me. What I'm saying is if Notre Dame likes him, it's different. It's different. I just don't like in my opinion, and when Notre Dame goes in on somebody, when Joe Rudolph goes in on somebody who recruited guys at Wisconsin, right? Like if Notre Dame recruited someone from the Midwest and Wisconsin wasn't on him, we'd be like, well, why isn't Wisconsin on him? You know, like people respect Joe Rudolph. People respect when Notre Dame makes an offer. So like to me, I don't think we need to go in on like, well, if he's so good, then why doesn't X Notre Dame offered? That's where I'm at. I don't want it really like if Notre Dame thinks he's good and all this other stuff with the smallness and all that. The strength coach, he signs off on everybody.
Yeah,
he signs off on everyone. That's why you bring him on campus and offer him. And it's like if he says it's good, then it's good. And then so then to me, it's like Emil Wagner, right? Like there were a ton of questions about Emil Wagner and whether or not he's whether he can get there. If they say it's fine, then it's fine, and everyone moves on. That's how I see it.
Also, too, I'm about to go on a big rant here because I can't stand this. Okay, so Patrick Carter brings up Trevor Ruland, and he's a perfect example. He was an undersized guy, right? But you know what? Trevor Ruland, I mean, and his problem was always he was going to be whatever. But his problem, he's got short arms. He's got like short arms. He was never going to be a certain guy. And he ballooned, but he worked hard to get to 295, right? They worked hard to get to 295. Like, so he didn't have trouble putting on the weight. He got to 300, you know? Zeke Correll, everybody's like, oh man, these guys so small. He's over 300 pounds now. Like, he put on the weight. And I'm not saying that he's ever going to be big or as big as, he's not as big as Nick Martin was at center because he's shorter and whatever. And if they decide to not take him because whatever, but it's like, who are the guys? There's literally been two guys in recent memory that have struggled to gain weight. One, Cole Mabry, a guy they never should have taken. Cole Mabry was undersized, never should have taken. And Michael Carmody, I just looked. Freshman year, he was 295. I have no idea why he's 280 right now. Like, I have no idea why that has happened to him. Like, I don't know. I don't know if it's because he doesn't care or he's like, whatever. Like, he's like, it doesn't matter that much to him. Or if there's something else, like some people they might have something going on medically that is preventing him from doing it. I don't know why, but he is clearly the exception to everybody else because Liam Eichenberg, Robert Hainsey, Joe Alt, Zeke Correll, Andrew Kristofic, all these guys who came in undersized, put on the weight. Yeah, of course, Xander Cruz. Wagner still needs to put on weight. Yeah, he still does. He hasn't even been on campus a year yet. So,
what is that? None of this has to do anything with the film that we just watched.
No,
this is all weight and it's all other offers.
And
I don't. Why do I care about that?
Also, I challenge everyone to go look at like the offensive tackle rankings for like any year and see how many guys are like 330 or 300 over 300. There's not a lot out of the top like 20 tackles in a class. That's not how it works. Most guys are like, there's quite a number of guys who are like 260, 270, right? That's how it is, right? So that's one part of it. It's like a total like gross overreaction to say whatever. And the thing is too, is like people are like, oh, you shouldn't just trust the coaches. Well, they're the guys who actually see him in person. It's on them if they screw up. They have to be able to see like this guy's frame. They have to be able to look to see if this guy can get the weight. They have to know in his personality if this guy really wants to do that kind of stuff, if he really cares about that stuff. So if they're wrong, then they're wrong, but they get a chance to look at him in person. No one who's looking at, I don't get this to see him and be like, man, this guy's frame, whatever. Right. So all you can do, of course, you're going to trust them because yeah, it's on them. If they think he's going to be 260 his whole time, they're not taking him. That's not how it works. So that is, to me, is just like a ridiculous argument. The other thing is Joe Rudolph right? If you respect Joe Rudolph and you respect the kind of like developer of talent of what he did at Wisconsin and an evaluation, the type of evaluator he is, right? So if you respect that, he worked him out in camp, in person. That's how he earned the offer. So maybe he went to some of these other camps. I don't know if he went to all these other camps and didn't earn offers or whatever, or if he didn't, but he saw him in person. That is a chance. He got a chance to work with him and was like, this is a guy that I want. And he moved to another place where he can recruit. He can recruit anyone he wants at Notre Dame. And he decided, like, I still want to recruit this guy. Is that not something? Like, does that not matter? Like, I think it does. I think it does. Okay. Here's a list of guys that played for Rudolph, at Wisconsin. Michael Dieter, 2-star guard, became a 3rd-round draft pick. Walk-on, Ryan Ramczyk, 1st-round pick, right? Wasn't a guy that he evaluated, but he was a guy that played for him, right? Obviously he was a walk-on anyways. He transferred over from like another small Wisconsin school. David Edwards, 3-star tight end, 5th-round pick. Logan Bruss, 3-star guard, 3rd-round pick. So he's got a decent track record of like knowing some of these guys who has a chance to be that kind of guy. So I definitely better than any of the Yabos on ISD or any of these other things who are like, no, why are we taking him? Whatever. Like, yes, and I'm someone who has to rank people. So yeah, I definitely think like, yeah, rankings do matter. Of course, you want to get like the 5-star guy, whatever, right? Well, first of all, there ain't 5-star guys in this class. It's not a good offensive tackle class. The kid from Mater Dei who they offered after Harry Easton left, I don't think that guy's that good. Like if you compared him to other classes, he's a big, monstrous guy. But like if you told me that Anthonie Knapp ended up having a better career than him, I wouldn't be shocked. I wouldn't be shocked because that guy, there are a lot of things to like about him, but he's kind of similar to Justin Scott to me, where he's like got a lot of holes that he needs to kind of work on. He might be Bray Walker. And if people don't know, Bray Walker was this massive offensive tackle who was like 315 when he's 6'7", 315 in high school. The guy had just cement shoes for feet and never became anything at Oklahoma. It didn't matter that he was big. Also, the guy just used to get just destroyed at whatever, right? And Xander Cruz, Gerby Lambert isn't a 5-star. He's not. He's not a 5-star. I haven't seen him as a 5-star at most places. Like he's a very high recruit. He could end up being a 5-star. And certainly, if you told me that Notre Dame was like, well, they got Anthonie Knapp, so they're going to stop recruiting Gerby Lambert. Yeah, then I'd have a problem with that. I'd be like, that doesn't make sense to me. I think they should still recruit Gerby Lambert. But if it's Anthonie Knapp or Gerby Lambert, then I'd be like, well, that's a mistake. But I don't think that's the case. So then why are people getting upset about it? Like, I don't get it. I don't understand it.
So I guess the size stuff, if they bring him on campus and Matt Bayless says this guy can get to 300 pounds, no problem, then what are we talking about? What are we talking about? And the other part too, and we need to move off this because it's gone too long, but the Xander, and I don't mind the disagreement. I really don't. It's fine. But we do have a disagreement, is that it's like, he's not a top, like all you're telling us is that he's not a top 50 player in Georgia, whatever. You don't like his size and you don't like his offer list. Yeah. Jamie's talking about his physical ability and what he did on film and how that translates to the offensive line. Jamie's talking about the player himself, and you're talking about things on a piece of paper, right? And which isn't to say that like that's nothing, okay? But if he was 290, would we feel different? Would he be ranked different? Would he then be a top 50 player in Georgia if he was 290? Right? Would Kyron Williams be a 4-star 150 player if he was 6 foot? Right? Like sometimes you just have to look at the tape and say, hey, like this guy can play. regardless of where he's ranked at the moment, right? And it's like, Joe Alt, we can't talk about him because he's the exception. Okay, we can't talk about him. Well, Kyle Hamilton at this point, as a junior, was top 1,000 in the nation. Was he? Where was he at in Georgia? He didn't have a Georgia offer at that time. I just don't. To me, it's just kind of like at some point, it's like the film is good. Notre Dame likes him. Matt Balis thinks the size is fine. And that's what it is, right? So then if the film is good at that point, then it's like, okay, this is a good player. Let's take him, right? Ashton Craig, same thing. Like Notre Dame loves Ashton Craig right now. They think he's a really good player, really good prospect, right? They took him over one of the higher rated kids from Wisconsin. Everyone hated it. Jeff Quinn's settling, right? And now he's a good player, and they expect good things for him, and he's going to take over for Zeke Correll next year.
By the way, Ashton Craig, 265 at the time.
265.
Another guy worked out in camp.
Right. So it's just like to me,
he's now 296.
At some point, we gotta say like, hey, Notre Dame made the offer, and so that carries a lot of weight. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. I don't even care if people just say like it's a bad take, but if you don't have it based on anything, just like or being like, I'm not sure about it. Whatever. I don't think people should be like Bernie, our good buddy Bernie, he's always in the comments, who's just like everything Notre Dame does is gravy and it's perfect or whatever, right? But it's like, okay, so here's the thing. I go against Justin Scott and say like he's not a top 50 player. Well, I have him obviously ranked higher than Anthonie Knapp, but it doesn't mean that I don't like Justin Scott. It just means that like I don't think his ranking is reflective of him as a player right now, or the projection for him. And Anthonie Knapp too, I would say like maybe check back in when the rankings are done and see where he's ranked, because I do think he's going to be a guy who moves up. And I don't know, like to me, okay, so Ian Moore, who is a guy that Notre Dame didn't offer originally, right? And he is from Indiana. He committed to Ohio State, and they got in on, right? I think the difference between like Ian Moore and Anthonie Knapp isn't huge. Just my opinion. I just don't think it's that big. Yeah. So I don't know. Like I mean, the thing is, there's going to be people who always argue, like some of the people who are in the comments that against it, because they're always going to see, well, my point is whatever. Like, but so Xander Cruz again. I mean, who's always going to go? He's like, Huddle isn't always reliable. Well, is in-person evaluation reliable? Because they evaluated him in person. Joe Rudolph did. So pick which argument fits what you want, right? That's what people are going to do. And that's fine. That's fine. And then guess what? We'll see how it works out. We'll see how it works out. But like, I don't know. Like, I just think he's a pretty good player. I think he's a pretty good pickup. If I was, I'm telling you, if Notre Dame fans, I think they should be pretty pleased. I think he has a chance to be a good player.
Jamie thinks he's a good-looking player. I mean, what are you going to do? Jamie thinks he's a good-looking guy, good-looking prospect. And you know what else is good-looking, Jamie? ESQ clothing. That's what's good-looking, all right? If you're looking to upgrade your wardrobe this spring, ESQ has created the world's first bamboo dress shirt. We're going to be wearing that pretty soon in a show. We're going to be talking about it, crafted from high-quality bamboo fabric. Softest and most comfortable shirt you ever put on. It's not only more sustainable than cotton, but also feels cooler, has stretch, is odor and wrinkle resistant, machine washable. You've seen ESQ's one-piece collar bamboo shirt on every photo of Marcus Freeman. Perfect shirt for today's business meeting or heading out for a night out. And we have a special offer for ISD listeners only, 23% off from spring football from now until blue and gold game using code ISD Spring. That's code ISD Spring to get an exclusive 23% off the best dress shirt you'll ever wear. Check out esqclothing.com and upgrade your shirt game. All right, Jamie. I want to end the show talking about spring ball. things that we've noticed. And I know that you guys talked about it on Power Hour a little bit, but I wanted to chime in on some stuff because there's some players who have made body changes, Jamie. And I think it's indicative of the type of work they've put in and how serious they take this. Okay. And so like a player like we talked about, a player like Chance Tucker, right? Who I believe was up 9 pounds, Jamie.
Yep.
Okay, 9 pounds, that's kind of a lot in a short amount of time, right? And I think that it's indicative that he sees this as an opportunity to be a player for Notre Dame and to get into the lineup and be a rotation guy, especially when we're talking about, whether or not they should move Clarence Lewis to safety or move someone to safety, right? And so I think that it's indicative to me. Like Chance Tucker plans to be on the Notre Dame football team. Just because it takes work, man. It's very easy just to spin your wheels. It really is. It's very easy to do that, and I think that that's indicative. I mean, obviously we've noted Audric Estime. Obviously I think Logan Diggs has slimmed down a little bit. I don't know where he ended up on the height and weight, but I just looking at him, he looks slimmer to me. Now, maybe that's a transfer of, adding more muscle and then losing a little bit of that baby fat, and, bringing down the body fat percentage and that sort of thing. But I mean, just key guys like that who it's like, they see this. It's like, hey, this is a big year. Like that. I'm going to do big things. We saw some clips of Audric Estime making moves in the open field. He put a nice move on Drake Bowen there. And look, it's open field like that. It's going to be advantage to the offense. Especially when it's a true junior like Audric Estime against basically a high school senior, right? So that's that. But it looked good, right? And I think that's been missing from his game. I think Deion Colsey looks really good. Who are some guys that stood out for you, Jamie, on the kind of on the weight gain standpoint, weight loss standpoint, and also the just physically looking at them?
I think physically, I think we mentioned before, but man, Jada Thomas just really sticks out. He looks
that's another good one.
He looks like $1 million to me. He just looks like impressive. Looks like a guy that it is like you should look a few years into the program. And I mean, obviously he's a different body type, but it reminds me a little bit of Chase Claypool, where obviously Chase Claypool was just a massive dude, but you could just saw it just as time went on and you were like, oh my gosh, like Chase Claypool would walk into, say like Irish Invasion or something like that, where we'd see him and you hadn't seen him for months and you'd be like, oh, he is like a dude, like Jaden Thomas looks like a dude. He looks like a dude where if you just saw him walking around, you'd be like, does this guy play receiver? Is he a linebacker? I don't even know. Like, cause he's just that big. Right. He's that big. And obviously he moves around great too. Right.
Yeah.
So he's a guy that really kind of stands out physically to me. I just thought, obviously you only saw just bits and pieces and just obviously pictures by, the great Rick Kimball took a bunch of pictures, obviously for ISD. He does a fantastic job for us, but like Kenny Minchie looks super impressive for an early enrollee.
Yeah.
215 pounds. And he looks like a college kid already. And like, just like Bowen, like you said, he's a guy who should be going to prom, right? Like he's not. So for him to kind of be that physically developed, especially after, he had like the shoulder thing that, really hurt his senior season. I think that's something that really kind of stood out for me as a guy. Blake Fisher being 310 pounds, and, saw obviously pictures of him in kind of like when he was like workout warrior of the week and all that kind of stuff. And you saw that he looks slimmed down, and he's a guy I'm super excited to see this weekend because I want to see how he moves at 310 pounds. But like, I think he's obviously he's a monstrous human being, no matter what, no matter what his weight was. But I think he's probably lost about 30 pounds since he's been on campus. Yeah. And I think that's probably a good thing.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to see him move and just kind of see how that works. I do think just as some of the weights, Burnham and Joshua Burnham and Junior Tui Halamaka both at 247 pounds. Like you're a year on campus and they're already at 247 pounds. Like I mean, that's impressive. That's impressive. And obviously, Tuihalamaka came in a little bit bigger, but still, that shows me too. If he's 247 pounds, he's not moving back to Mike Backer anytime soon. It's just probably going to be a long-term fit for him at Viper and for Burnham too, especially because, I mentioned on Power Hour too, that Al Golden said like, he thinks he's going to be like over 260. And I was like, wow, over 260, but 247, like that is really, really impressive a year in. Man, I'm excited to see, how big and strong he looks, what, how he moves and all that. One of just Preston's Inner 233. That's big. That's big. And I don't know if that's good big, like 233 as like an early enrollee linebacker. There's very few guys that are like cut up at 233 as an early enrollee guy,
Yeah.
And so I'm like, is he going to be a Viper? Where is he going to be? Where is his fit? How is he moving at that 233 pounds?
Yeah.
That's going to be interesting for me to see because, I mean, it definitely piqued my interest. And you know what? Although I didn't mention him in the thing, but I don't know if you saw, first of all, great pics of the Notre Dame guys celebrating in the lacrosse game. Just awesome. Just watching, cheering on the lacrosse team. That was fantastic. And I think Rick took a bunch of those pics too, which are great. But I don't know if you saw Jason Anye.
I did. Yeah.
Pics. Like dude.
Big guy. Yeah.
He is, and with abs. Like, so he is, 295. So, I mean, I don't know how he's going to play, but, first off the bus, he checks that box. Like, he looks impressive. Yeah. So, I thought he, probably when they took him, he was easily one of the most raw defensive linemen. Him and Ahrensberger are in the same kind of category, whatever. But he is obviously just in a different stratosphere in terms of his physical development compared to Ahrensberger. I don't think Ahrensberger is like in pretty good shape, but he's just so much bigger. He's a guy I'm officially intrigued because I just think guys like that usually end up being players. So, I mean, not every of them, some guys, body like Tarzan, plays like Jane or whatever, but I was encouraged by what I saw from him last spring and just in terms of his motor and his want to. So I'm kind of excited to see where he's at because, I mean, Jesus, if I was him, I'd be walking around with my shirt off in South Bend all the time, man. Like, guy looks impressive. Yeah.
I don't understand the Tuihalamaka thing at all. I don't get it either. I don't get it. Everyone is everyone a Viper now? Is that what it is? If he is a Viper, anyone can be Viper. Anyone, literally. I put JD Bertrand at Viper. To me, you got to be long, you got to be twitchy, and you got to be like a really good athlete to move in space. To me, that's not Junior Tuihalamaka, which is fine because he's a Mike.
Yeah.
Like, Drew White is not a Viper. Like, to me, Junior Tuihalamaka is Drew White. So, like, what are you doing? What are they doing? I don't get it. I don't understand. I
just thought he was a really instinctive off the ball player too.
Right.
So I just
I don't know. What do you like? Okay, in theory, could you play him at Viper? Sure, right, against the run, sure, right. But you have guys that do that. Like, he's not like Jordan Botelho to me.
No,
he's not anything like that. He's not anything like Isaiah Foskey. He's not anything like Keon Keeley, who they recruited to be a Viper. Like, I don't get that. I don't. I really don't. But whatever. Best of luck, right? I hope it works out. I just don't understand. The receiver thing, the early enrollee freshmen, I think they look great.
They look really good.
They look great. And like impressive. Route running. I think Braylon James looks good as a route runner too. Yes. I like it. I love the way he moves. I love the way Flores moves. I really love the way Greathouse moves. I don't know how these guys get on the field. I don't. especially when Matt's talking about how Styles has his like confidence back, like his body language is a lot better now. I think Colsey looks great. I think Tobias, he's filled out. He's strong now. How do you get him off the field? Jaden Thomas, you're not taking him off the field. And then that's Caleb Smith, where it's like he's been, if anyone has been kind of like, I guess, lukewarm, it's just kind of like, what's going on with him? Like, why aren't we hearing more about this guy who we brought in, who's actually like caught a ton of passes in college?
Yeah.
Like, why is it
18 yards a catch last year?
Yeah. Why doesn't he look better? Right. Why are people talking about him like he moves like a tight end? I don't like that. I don't like hearing that at all. Right. I don't like that. But it's like, he's a guy. It's like, is Jaden Greathouse going to take his snaps? You know, are they going to take snaps from him? Like, it's hard to see. So to me, there's 5. And how do you get, and then you factor in Chris Tyree, then you factor in the tight ends, Holden Stays and Mitchell Evans. I think it's a really good group of receivers. The freshmen, I don't know how they get out there. To me, there's just not a ton of opportunity, which is a great problem, right? It's a great problem to have, but so that's how I see it. And the other thing I wanted to talk about was safety. People they keep saying that they need another one, and maybe they do, right? If you're not happy with Ramon Henderson or Xavier Watts or something, I could see it if you thought like, hey, the DJ Brown, Henderson, Watts trio with Harper coming in and playing it when you need it. If you don't like them, you bring in another safety. But to me, it's like, this is all because Brendan Hillman didn't get accepted. And if he didn't get accepted, well, I don't think that's like now you need a safety, because I didn't expect him to play. So I don't know. To me, the safety conversation is a little strange. And to me, you could move Clarence Lewis too. What do you think about the safety stuff?
I think it's a little strange too. I just think like, I mean, he might have just been talking off the cuff as an answer,
right?
Like maybe,
yeah.
So we don't really know how deep he's really like, because I don't know. I don't know what kind of safety, like we kind of talked about it in the last show. Like,
yeah,
I don't know what kind of safety they get that would just all of a sudden be like, well, this guy's going to start. Like, I don't know if there's going to be that guy out there. So, and then like Hillman might have played special teams this year. I think, probably is what I would have expected from him. I definitely don't think he was going to be like a guy. I probably doubtful he would crack the 2 deep. So I don't know. I don't get it from that perspective. I should mention Thomas Harper, 195 pounds. He was 180 at Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
That's where he's listed at. And I mean, 180, I was like, he looked like 180 soaking wet to me. Like he looked small. And I liked him as a player, but I just saying he wasn't big. So that kind of caught my interest of what maybe just he's into this strength and conditioning program is making a difference. I don't know. Maybe he's a little heavy because he had the shoulder thing. I don't know. Right. Mm-hmm. But I'm kind of interested in that there. I don't know what to think of safety. I do think like, and whatever, I've probably talked about it too much, but I do think like if it kind of works out and kind of leads back to what Chance Tucker and stuff like that too, is that like if Chance Tucker ends up being a guy or Christian Gray ends up being a guy or both or whatever, then I think that opens the door for a guy like Clarence Lewis to move. And I think that's kind of where you're looking at it.
I think that's a better option than trying to get in the portal personally. I mean, obviously this is subject to seeing who ends up in the portal if someone does, but I don't know. I just don't. To me, everyone's talking about how they got to do it, and I'm just like, why? Why do they? Unless there's an injury, and if you're guarding against injury, again, you brought it up. We brought it up last week. Who are you getting that's a guard against injury? Who's good?
Yeah.
If it's the Avery Sebastian type, like, is that helping? That's just a body.
No, it is just a body. Yeah.
Sign me up. I'll do it. I have eligibility. Sign me up. I'll get out there. All right, we're gonna have to leave it there. We got the next show on Thursday. We got to go deeper in the spring because we got kind of sidetracked, but that's okay, no problem. That's what live shows are for, right? People come in and engage, and then we focus on something. So we'll go into more spring on Thursday. We'll talk about some more stuff. We'll talk about position battles and and where we see the team going and that sort of thing. So thank you everyone for tuning into the show. If you liked what you heard, hit the like, hit subscribe button, hit the notification bell, subscribe on Apple Pods, subscribe on Spotify. So you can see all our stuff and hear all our stuff, right? It's so good. And if you leave a comment, leave a review, you have no idea how much that helps and grow the show and that sort of thing, get the eyes on more people and that sort of thing. So if you could do that, that'd be awesome. So thank you everyone for tuning in, and we will talk to you next week, or not next week. We'll talk to you on Thursday. Have a good day, everybody.